There's no script, so I don't know what's going to happen when, so you're just going to have to stand by, be ready with all of it. That's the best I can tell you. You know, I sit there, I tell the broadcast engineer what sound bites I want to use, and I never use them in the same order I tell him, because once your show starts, it all changes. So it's a wasted bunch of time. So they're plan it, because it's just going to happen as it happens. Because it's all improv here. Rush Limbaugh, great to have you, folks. We are back at it. More broadcast excellence on the Rush Limbaugh program and the EIB network. The telephone number, if you want to be on the program, is 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushbaugh@eibnet.com. All right, let me give you some umbrella items that we're going to get to today, because I can't get to everything here in the first segment, and everybody has their pet issues they care about, and hope that I mention first or second, and sometimes that doesn't happen. So the Senate and the Department of Homeland Security and the vote and how that's going to shake out, and how the Senate Republicans, on the one hand, are trying to show everybody how cooperative they are with the Democrats, and on the other hand, trying to make us believe that they are opposing Obama and trying to. So we'll give you both sides of that. On Thursday, the FCC is going to vote on net neutrality. And I have some people sending me emails asking me what it is. And I'll sum it up as best I can for you. But what is going to happen Thursday is a direct result of Obama hijacking the effort. Essentially, let me just put it to you this way. Do you own a website? Do you operate a website? If Obama gets his way, you're going to have to get a license for it, just like radio and TV stations get licenses, because the Internet is going to be subject to regulation under Title II, like broadcast facilities are. Cable is not, but over-the-air broadcast. But they can't wait to regulate the Internet, folks. They just can't wait. There's too much freedom out there. There are too many people, quote-unquote, out of control on the Internet, and Obama and the Democrats have got to get it controlled. And the way they're doing it is capitalizing on the stupidity of young people. Maybe stupidity is the wrong word. Ignorance and lack of information resulting from they haven't lived long enough to know. The way net neutrality is being sold to millennials is, and I read these tech bloggers, these little guys, I read them, and they hate their cable providers. They hate their website service providers, internet service. They hate them. Just like you were made to hate big oil, and just like you were made to hate big tobacco, just like you've been oriented to hate big anything, big retail, big box retail like Walmart, the Democrats' enemies list now includes all of the telecommunications companies and the internet service providers. And the way Obama is targeting support, gaining support from young people on this, he's got them convinced that what he's going to do with net neutrality is punish the people they hate. Does this sound familiar? They're going to go after Comcast, they're going to have Time Warner, any other telecommunications cell provider, internet service. They're going to really hammer them, and they're going to make sure that they don't overcharge. And they're going to make sure they provide equal access to high speed. The big rich people aren't going to get any more access to high speed than people who can't afford it are. And the government's going to take care of it. And the government's going to punish it. And the government's going to make people to behave right. The government's going to make it all fair. The government's going to make it all equal. And that's what they've been led to believe. The same government that has right in front of these little people's, these young people's faces, blown up the healthcare system, the same government that has made a mockery of healthcare.gov, the same government that has messed up and on the verge of totally destroying, under the guise of transforming it, the best healthcare system in the world. While that is happening, I mean, you can't have any better evidence of the incompetence of bureaucracies to handle massive market maneuvers like healthcare. You can't have a better example of government failure than what they're trying to do with healthcare or anything that Obama has touched in the economy. And yet, in the midst of being able to see all of this failure, In the midst of witnessing all of this government incompetence, despite that, we still have people thinking the government's going to get it right when they start regulating the internet. Now, I'm sorry, folks. You can blame Obama, and I do, and you can blame the FCC and its commissioners, and I do, and you can blame politicians. But ultimately, this falls back on the gullibility and the ignorance, dare I say, stupidity of some people, because it's happening right in front of the very government that can't do anything right in terms of improving things that it claims to fix, is eminently trusted to get it right on the internet. And I want to be around when these people have to get licenses for their websites. Do you know what happens when you get a license to own a radio or a TV station? You have to prove to the government every 3 years, 5 years, I don't know what it is now, but you have to prove, maybe it's 10, but you have to prove that you are operating responsibly. You have to prove that you are adequately serving the community, blah, 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 blah. The point is, your freedom to operate your website is going to be dependent on the government approving what you do. Do you want somebody like Obama and his regime in charge? The internet is the essence, in terms of the comparison to things elsewhere in America, the essence of independence, liberty, and freedom right now. And it's like, now, to some of you who might be sensitive to the argument, well, you know what, Rush? Those internet providers, they do charge too much, overcharge. Folks, nobody's going to sit here and make the claim that how best, it's the people who are the best customers of these providers are going to get the best service. It's just the way it is. It's that way in healthcare. You can set up national healthcare all you want, like the Brits did. The rich people don't use it. They've got their own network of hospitals and doctors that have opted out. And it's going to be like that here. And no matter how much socialism you have, no matter how much government attempts to make everybody the same, everybody equal, you're never going to get rid of the rich. Look at Obama. If there's ever been a president that's told everybody he's targeting the rich, he's going to get fair, going to get even, the rich are getting richer under Obama, aren't they? The rich, the finance people, the banks, they're getting richer. They get bailed out. I thought Obama was going to get even with these guys. The exact opposite of what these people think the government's going to do for them under net neutrality is what's going to happen. The exact opposite. It's going to get slower. It's going to get more clogged up. And they're going to have less access than they have now. But they have been so conditioned. The left, what does it profit from hatred? It profits, it benefits, it stokes it. And then they come in after they create all this hatred or add to the hatred that already exists, wherever it is. They add to it and they create all this chaos and they gin up all this emotion. And then they come in as the guys wearing the white hats. We're going to make it fair for you. We're going to make it equal for you. We're going to make sure that if you can only afford $15 a month for internet service, your speeds are going to be just as fast as people who are paying $1,000 a month. Well, I'm sorry, it's not going to ever happen. The providers are going to service the people that pay them $1,000 a month before they service the people that pay them $15. It's just the way it is. It's not fair, Mr. Limbaugh. It's not fair. I don't have $1,000. You don't right now, but you might as you get older. Anyway, you can't legislate this kind of stuff, but people live in a never-ending phase or state of blind faith hope that the government can come along and address, redress, and eliminate every injustice out there, be it economic, be it cultural, and they have yet to succeed at it, and yet, I mean, we're living in the middle of the absolute most glaring examples of government incompetence as administered by Obama and his administration, and yet, despite the evidence that they don't know what despite they lie. How many times did people hear from Obama, you like your doctor, you keep your doctor, you like your plan, you keep your plan. Your premium's going to come $2,500 down. It didn't. None of it's happened. Everybody's premiums have gone up. Out-of-pocket's gone up. Premiums have gone up. Deductibles have gone up. The number of uninsured has not gone up. Nothing's happened according to the promises. And yet, when Obama comes along and tells them he's going to lower their cable rates, he's going to raise their speeds, he's going to make sure the providers get, they believe it. They believe it in the midst of knowing full well they have been lied to. I don't know how many times about Obamacare alone. And maybe I'm making a mistake in assuming they know they've been lied to. Maybe they don't even know that. Maybe my mistake is assuming they are more aware than they are. And in addition to websites needing a license to operate, I mean, why you hadn't thought of that? Why else do they want to regulate the internet? You don't think they want to? Net neutrality, that's another one of these bogus titles for an operation. It's the exact opposite. It's not going to be neutral. That's designed to make people think that nobody's going to get special favorite treatment. Nobody's going to get better service. It's designed to lasso and rope people in. It's just like you could call anything you want the Civil Rights Act of 2015. It could pass no matter what's in it. Net neutrality. Yes. Net freedom. Yes. It just means that the big providers can't rip people off anymore. That's what they think it means. And that's all they think it means. Then they have to get their websites registered, and then the regulations. Because, the Obama is incorporating a Federal Election Commission in this. Do you know that? The FEC? Well, because so much of the internet is perceived to be in-kind campaign contributions. So the FCC and the FEC will now start regulating the internet. And there will, of course, just as there have been with Obamacare, as there have been waivers, there will be exemptions for certain people from the regulations that are put in place to regulate the internet. And just as the Obama waivers for Obamacare were designed to shield the absolute disaster that was awaiting everybody upon full implementation, waivers were granted so that Obama would not be punished prior to elections. Waivers were granted to donors. Waivers were granted to individuals and businesses friendly to Obama. Same thing's going to happen with the internet and how it's regulated. Right now, the internet has very little regulation at all. It is a single output. I'm stunned. I mean, the ease with which Obama has had in getting so many young people to sign on eagerly to the idea of regulating the internet, because as long as this is the way it's always worked, and it just amazes me that it keeps working, as long as the regulation of the internet is designed to punish the rich, then you get people to support it. If the regulation and licensing of the internet is designed to really suck it to the cable companies and the cellular companies and the internet service providers, if that's what you're going to do, I am all for it, because I hate my cable company, I hate my cell company, I hate my provider, and as much as you can punish them, I'm all for it. Because they look at government as being able to wield the power they wish they could wield. Hillary Clinton has been wanting to control the internet since 1993. Net neutrality is as honest a name as is the Affordable Care Act, or as was the Fairness Doctrine. It's just the latest left-wing power grab. You know how they want to get rid of Fox News? You know how they'd love to get rid of talk radio? Well, they're going to be able to get rid of people and things they don't like on the internet. That's why they want regulatory control over it. And by the way, the mechanism that they want to utilize to control the internet falls under the aegis of Title II. Title II dates back to the 1930s. That's how old it is. Let me take a brief time out. I got a couple sound bites on this. Michael Powell, who I think is the son of Colonel Colin Powell. General Powell. He was a former commissioner of the FCC. These are 32. Yeah, I better take a break. We'll have the sound bites when we get back. Don't go away. Hi, welcome back. Rush Limbaugh here, the EIB network. Half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. Federal Communications Commission, a Federal Election Commission toying around with regulating the Internet. Critics from both the FCC and the FEC are warning that speed and freedom of speech are in jeopardy, and they're right. In a joint column, FCC Commissioner member Ajit Pai, one of the two Republicans, and the Federal Election Commission member Lee Goodman lowered the boom on Obama-favored regulations of the Internet. They essentially charge that it'll muck up the freedom the nation has come to expect from the Internet. In one key passage of the column, these two guys wrote on Monday that heavy-handed FCC regulations like those imposed in Europe will significantly slow down Internet speeds. These Internet regulations will deter broadband deployment, depress network investment, and slow broadband speeds. How do we know? Compare Europe, which has had and long had utility-style regulations over the Internet. Compare that with the U.S., which has embraced a light-touch regulatory model. Broadband speeds in the U.S., both wired and wireless, are significantly faster than in Europe. That's true if you've never been. Broadband investment in the U.S. is several multiples of that of Europe. Broadband's reach much wider in the U.S. despite its much lower population density, and the reason is that it's less regulated. It costs less to build up and build out your high-speed network. There are fewer payoffs required. It makes no sense in Europe to do it. That's what's called social justice. Democrat, liberal social justice is never the equalization of people by raising or elevate people at the bottom. It is by lowering people at the top and punishing them. And that's exactly what Obama's net neutrality will do, or seek to do. It will, better stated, what Obama's net neutrality falsely promises people in this country is that these big providers, the cellular companies, the cable companies, the satellite companies, the internet providers, they're going to get hammered finally. They're going to be told that they're overcharging. They're going to be told that they're throttling internet speeds and that they can't do it anymore. And the bourgeois in the United States, yeah, man, you punish them, dude. You suck it to them, dude. You make them pay. What happens? Cable service, satellite service, internet broadband service all get worse. And that's how everything is made fair. Nobody at the bottom has their service elevated. It doesn't work that way. It never does when the left gets hold of things. This is called social justice. Oh, yeah, you bring Netflix into this and you really get these young millennials all worked up. Netflix is out there telling them they're going to be one of the big beneficiaries of this because they compete with all these providers and so forth. Anyway, I'm up against it here, but yeah, there it is, the ear-splitting tone, but I'm not through on this yet. Be right back. So I checked the email during the break, and it's the same old question. Rush, I haven't seen any of this. How do you know? How do you know this is what Obama means by net neutrality? I haven't seen any of it. Why do you think you haven't seen any of this? The fact that you haven't seen any of this, you interpret as maybe evidence I don't know what I'm talking about. Why don't you ask yourself why Obama has not released what his regulations and his ideas for net neutrality are? And let me give you a little reminder. How many of you saw the legislation that became Obamacare before it was voted on? Answer, very few of you. Remember Nancy Pelosi? We have to pass it to find out what's in it? Do you think if you had known well in advance everything that was in Obamacare, would you have, in your blanket way, supported it? I'm talking to people, young people here, not you in the audience. I'm talking to young people who are all for net neutrality. I hear from them. I've got these emails. How do you know? How do you know? How do you? I haven't seen any of this. Why haven't you seen it? You haven't seen it because Obama hasn't released it. Obama has not released the details of his plan, his program for net neutrality. That's why everybody's able to make it up whatever they want it to be, just like the Obama campaign in 2008 was. Whatever you want him to be, he is. If he's a great unifier, that's what he's going to be. If he's going to make America loved once, that's what he's going to do. You had no idea who he was. Let me ask you this. Put your thinking caps on. How many times in the last 20 years do you recall various elements of the media saying there's too much democracy in America? There are too many voices. We gotta pare these down. There's too much confusion. Too many viewpoints out there. It's confusing to the people. I remember every one of them. I remember me being on the cover of Time magazine in the mid-'90s, and the headline was, "Is Rush Limbaugh bad for America?" Why were they asking that question? Because my point of view was not theirs. Mrs. Clinton in 1998 said the following: "We are all going to have to rethink how we deal with this internet thing because there are all these competing values without any kind of editing function or gatekeeping function. What does it mean to have the right to defend your reputation?" That was Hillary in 1998 sending a dog whistle about getting rid of Matt Drudge. It was in the heat of the Lewinsky event. And she was worried, as were all these libs, and they have been ever since their media monopoly was blown up. There are too many voices. It's too confusing. There are too many points of view. That ought to just offend the hell out of everybody, particularly you young people. It ought to offend you and cause genuine anger among you. Too many viewpoints? We got to whittle them down. We got to get rid of some of these really extreme points of view. It's causing chaos in the countryside. It's causing tumult. It's creating confusion. We've got to... Who are they? Who are they to say there are too many opinions when we have a Constitution and a Bill of Rights, and the First Amendment explains and codifies freedom of speech? My point is, this is something they have been salivating over getting control of, the internet, for 17 to 20 years. Just as like they salivated for control over health care for 50 years. And it's almost a repeat process. Obama's got his massive plan, but nobody's seen it. He won't release it. So everybody's able to create, out of net neutrality, whatever they think it is, what they want it to be. You got Obama administration officials here and there will drop little hints about getting even with the service providers, or making sure that small customers do not have their speeds throttled and cut back, and thereby not reaching their data limit sooner and being charged for more data after they have reached their monthly allotted limit. They've dropped enough hints to make young people think that the real target of net neutrality is once again the big corporations. Yeah, Obama's going to come give them what for. Obama's going to come tame them, just like he did AIG, and just like he did all those fat cat financial company CEOs. Yeah, and if they don't fall in line, we're going to send protesters to their front yards. Yeah, we're going to get even with these people ripping us off. I don't want to have to watch cable TV if I want to watch Breaking Bad. I want to be able to stream it on my phone, and I don't want to be overcharged for it. I want to be able to cut the cord, and I want to make sure that the company providing me with Breaking Bad on my iPhone does not overcharge. And Obama comes along and says, exactly what I'm going to do. Really? You people think it's going to get cheaper? You know, HBO is going to provide a standalone streaming service, HBO Go. To get it now, you have to be a cable or satellite subscriber to HBO. And then the service is so-called free. It isn't, because you have to be a customer now. But HBO is going to cut the cord itself. HBO is going to provide HBO Go streaming only. And one of the biggest surprises awaiting young millennials is how much they're going to charge for it. They can charge pretty much what they are being paid now by each cable customer and maybe add 20 or 30% to it. And they'll get away with it because HBO is not considered an evil cable company or provider. HBO's got the content. Yeah, HBO, we love HBO. That's where we get all of our sex, and that's why we get all the gay, lesbian stuff, and that's where we get all the drama, and that's where we get Game of Thrones. Yeah, man, let me have it on my phone or my iPad. I don't want to have cable for it. Fine, they're going to charge you for it. And every one of these providers, every one of these content providers that cuts the cord out of cable, out of satellite, they're going to charge, and you're going to end up paying more for all these services you want than you do combined in your cable package. But they're not thinking this far ahead, because right now they're being made satisfied and happy. The idea that Obama is going to cut these providers and these cell companies and these telecoms. He's going to cut them down to size finally. Just like back in our younger days, folks, they were going to get even with big oil. Yes, they're really going to get even with big tobacco. Yeah, man, they're going to get punished. They're going to have their hats handed to them and everything. Yeah, right on. It never works out the way it's planned. Social justice, making it worse for everybody under the guise of equality or fairness or what have you. And mark my words, here it is, February 24, 2015. That's what's going to happen. And you know something else? For wealthy people, it isn't going to change. They're going to be able to pay whatever they want to get the same service they've got now or even better. And there will be people that will provide it for them. There will always be, no matter what Obama does, no matter how much he regulates, no matter how much he tries, the wealthy are still going to be able to get whatever download speeds they want. They're going to be able to get whatever services and content provider service they want. They have the ability to pay for it. And as long as they've got the ability to pay for it, there's going to be somebody provided. And so the rich are not going to get shafted. The rich are not going to get stung. The rich are not going to get punished. It's just service for most everybody else is going to deteriorate under the guise of making it equal for everybody. And neutral. Yes, net neutrality. Now, these two guys, Ajit Pai, FCC commissioner, he's one of the Republican members, and Lee Goodman of the FEC, warned, they said, that internet freedom works. It is difficult to imagine where we would be today had the government micromanaged the internet for the past 2 decades as it does Amtrak and the U.S. Postal Service. They're going to turn the internet into a utility, folks. Licensed utilities. And then they wrote this. We don't need to shift control of the internet to bureaucracies in Washington. Let's leave the power where it belongs, with the American people. When it comes to Americans' ability to access online content or offer political speech online, there isn't anything broken for the government to fix. To paraphrase President Ronald Reagan, internet regulation isn't the solution to a problem. Internet regulation is the problem. All well and good, but I thought the era of Reagan was over. Isn't that what a lot of Republicans have been telling us for a couple of years or longer? Yeah, the era of Reagan that's old-fashioned. Those are old days. Reaganism doesn't apply to the modern era, and yet it always does. Internet regulation, these guys are right. Internet regulation is not the solution to a problem. Internet regulation is going to become the problem. Michael Brown, former commissioner, FCC, Republican, obviously, was on Squawk Box on CNBC today. And one of the co-hosts, Andrew Ross Sorkin, asked him a question. Said, one of the things we've all talked about is what an appeal looks like and how long it takes and what that does to investment during that period. Now, we heard from the CEO of AT&T who says that he plans to pull back. Can you speak to that broadly from all of your constituents that you've been talking? What this is assuming that net neutrality becomes law of the land and that there are then lawsuits, appeals to try to stop it. And Michael Powell answers that question.
Litigation with FCC appeals is a pretty long, drawn-out process. I would predict that it's at least 2 and up to 5 years before the rules are fully and finally settled. The original classification decision went all the way to the Supreme Court and took a good 3.5, 4 years. They've understood the law for 15 years, and suddenly that's going to be radically transformed to a new style of regulation, which is going to prompt a whole myriad of questions that are going to await answers, and I think that's going to have an impact on investment choices.
Now, see, they're talking about what's going to happen to the investments of people buying stock and the providers. That's not what interests me about the CNBC. But what interests me in this is, once they put it in there, you're not going to unravel it. And if it takes 2 to 5 years for an appeal to be heard, you're not going to unravel anything, just like you're not going to unravel amnesty once it starts. So there's no, and this is what Obama knows. It's going to be total chaos. He doesn't care. All he knows, healthcare is total chaos. Doesn't care. Bottom line is, he runs it. So then the next question came from Joe Kernan, who said, well, when the adults in the room finally speak up and the FCC chairman, Tom Wheeler, sees what the end result's going to be, won't he say, maybe I need to rethink this? Is it too late for that, or are we just going to go headlong into it? The vote's Thursday. Kernan saying, wait a minute, the FCC commissioner might wake up all of a sudden and see how bad this is. And this is what Powell says to that.
I think they're locked and loaded, and it's too late that they're going to turn back. They're going to vote on Thursday, and when you talk about the moments of shock, I think watching the President of the United States come on a YouTube video and direct the FCC to adopt a very specific regulatory result, I think that was shocking.
Why? Why was that shocking? To see Obama try to take control of us? Why in the world is that shocking? Why shouldn't that be expected by now? Why is it shocking that Obama would do a YouTube video aimed at the very young people we're talking about, demanding that the FCC immediately take over the regulation of the Internet? He doesn't have the authority to do that, just like he doesn't have the authority to grant blanket amnesty on any of this stuff.